Hello and welcome back to the channel, and of course another video about the construction of Heaton Lodge Junction Phase 2. Now, am I mad? Well, sometimes I honestly think I am. Would you believe it? It is 6:45 on Friday morning, this morning, and of course, I didn't get in home till 10 past 10 last night, so it's no wonder that my friend has me in her contacts on her phone as the mole that lives in the hole, and she's not far wrong. But to be honest, there is a reason why I'm here this early in the morning. I'm not normally here this early, and it's simply because the company above, which makes tiles, have been really noisy this week because they're doing some work, and I've got to beat them to it and get this video filmed before they arrive at 8. So hence the early start. But yeah, I do, on a more serious subject, you know, all of us, and I've touched on this many times before in these videos, all of us lack motivation sometimes. And I've had one of those weeks where the week started, you know, I switched the lights on in here on the morning. You can tell it's early in the morning because I don't have my coffee. And can't get the words out. So, and I come down here and I look at the size of this layout. But I've still got that vision in my head. I know exactly what it's going to look like. But nevertheless, you do get sometimes demoralized. And we all do. There's always jobs where, you know, we don't want to do these jobs. And so we finish the session in the loft or in the garage or wherever your layout is. And you don't want to go back to it the next day. But again, I've said before that the way around that is to finish your modelling sessions on a high, and definitely finish a modelling session on a job you like doing, because you always want to come back the next day. And I have made the mistake many times where I've finished on a low and just wanted to go home at 4 o'clock and put my feet up. But then, of course, the next day, I don't want to come back. So don't do that. What I'm trying to say is always finish on a high. That is my kind of tip of the week. But moving on, feedback, yes. Thanks very much for all your feedback last week about the length of these videos, taking it all on board. The consensus of opinion is that most people think that these videos are about the right length. I know they vary between kind of 25 minutes and an hour. But most people tend to watch those parts of these videos which they like and scroll past others they don't. And that's great. So happy about that. And thanks for all your comments. Sorry I've not replied to all of them. I've done a lot, but there's so many of them. So thanks for that. What else I want to tell you? Yes, 2,200 droppers so far on Phase 2, that is. So a dropper, for those of you who don't know, is a meter length of 0.75 millimeter wire, which are soldered to, there's one, of course, there's a common and there's a return on every single track, on every single board. And there's 2,205 so far. And I do them a meter length because this is another thing that people have been asking me. Why do you make these droppers so long? It's just so when the hardware goes in from the guys that are going to come and electrify everything in the future, probably March or April time, at least they're long enough to be sure that they will go to every extremity, so to speak. So there we go, that's why. But yeah, 2,200 droppers, that is some soldering. I've been through a lot of wire and a lot of soldering, and there's still a lot more to do. Anyway, moving on, I've got a list in front of me. Book of the week. Yes, we're doing book of the week this week. We're doing deliveries. We're doing the usual slots. Little how-to. I'm not gonna let you into the secret about what the how-to is this week. You're gonna have to watch it because it's to do with one of the deliveries. So we're gonna go into that as well. So I think that is about right. The other reason I was gonna say about why am I mad? Well, talking about motivation, I mentioned earlier in this introduction, which I know is very long today, probably something to do with the hour of the morning. But I mentioned earlier about motivation and the lack of it. Well, it started off, as I said earlier, a bad week. But then the extension carts arrived for the cooling towers. And the extension carts, you'll see later, are those metal frames with wheels on, which are big enough. These are 6 foot by 6 foot. And the cooling towers sit on those extension carts. And I was feeling really demoralized these arrived from the fabrication company. I got them set up and I put 2/3 of the cooling tower up on the extension carts. And I was just like, oh, this is exactly where it's going. I knew exactly then. I've always known about the vision, but when you see something actually happen, it really invigorates you. So as you can probably tell, it really excited me. So yeah, I'm all buzzing today and ready to show you 2/3 of the cooling tower up on the cart, on the basement, sorry, on the layout for the first time. So I know this is a long introduction. I don't want to waffle, but so yeah, before further ado, let's crack on with the video. Right, folks, I just want to show you what progress has been made since last week. And if I just pan down to the left, you will see the extremities of the phase 2 right down the other end, about 30 meters down there. And then if I just pan down the other way, we've got another 25 meters that way. But over the last, I think it's taken me 3 months, I have now just about completed all the ballasting and all the droppers. That is these things here, of which I mentioned in the introduction. There's 2,205, I think, so far. So let me show you. I've got right to the end now. That's the HS3, as you know, high-level station. And I'm just going to have a few changes at this end here. Now, I've ballasted all this. This is still soaking wet, and I hope you like it. In fact, it's still got to be painted, but only very lightly because it's concrete track. So I've yet got to do that, but the last couple of days has seen me ballasting these junctions, and just panning back round again, where the drill is, the ballast is still soaking wet. So yeah, this is where the scenic break will be, between that pillar and the blue bucket with the green wire on top. So what I've changed round here is the HS3 line, which you can just see the station on the left there with the HST parked in it. That is now going to be running parallel with this line here. And all 3 lines, that is the high-speed line, this line here, which I'm just touching, and the one next to it, and the one over there, are all going to be disappearing through the scenic break on different levels at the same place, which is going to be where my vac is, just there, which I'm just using to do the ballasting. So the scenic break is basically going to be here at board 48. And again, sorry about the mess, but sometimes I know you guys like to see everything behind the scenes, and you're certainly seeing that now. So that's going to be the scenic break, which is why I've ballasted everything up to here. This has been a bit of a nightmare, I've got to be honest. The reason it's a nightmare is because I, of course, opted to super elevate or cant all the track around here. But canting track or super elevating it can cause problems in any gauge, double O gauge, N gauge, and O gauge especially. And it's all to do with levels. And I've had the perfect storm here because I've got a gradient, you can't really see, but the track is rising here up to meet where the drill is. It's canted or super elevated. Obviously, it's on a curve, which is why it's canted in the first place. But a combination of all those factors has meant getting the levels right has been really difficult. And one of the other reasons it's difficult is because it's canted quite steeply, probably about 6 inches in scale, which is the most, I believe, that Network Rail cant their track. Because of that, it's meant that the Pico nails that I've used, you can just see one there, won't actually, they're not long enough to go through the cork, which I've used to raise the far side of the track. They won't go all the way through to the cork and then the base, the wood, the plywood underneath. So I've used a little trick, which I kind of found by trial and error a few months ago. And it's this, it's just popping up on your screen. And what I've done is I've just used screws, long screws, which you can basically turn, and if you get the head to just touch the end of a sleeper, then you can adjust the track. So when you look at it from eye level, you can get it perfectly straight, and then you cover the head of the screw with ballast. I have chopped half the screw off. James, my helper, suggested that. I never thought of that. And covered it in ballast. So that has solved the problem. So if I dip underneath, I won't dip underneath there because the floor is covered in PVA glue where it's dripped from the ballast. So let's go around here and I'll show you what I mean. So from this direction, you can see exactly what I mean. So these curves are the ones that I'm talking about. And getting these two curves super elevated on a gradient and really nice and level as they go up and then down again has been an absolute nightmare. In fact, this is one of the reasons I was demoralized the other day, because it took me, I think, a day and a half to get this right when I just allocated a couple of hours. But anyway, it's right now, and that's the main thing. Of course, we've got the concrete factory over here. All this is now finished. I've just got to infill the tracks. All the buildings for the cement factory are about to land, including the kiln tower, which I've had to get steel or fabricated out of steel because of the disaster a few weeks ago. But as you can see, imagine all the colour light signals, the gradient posts, all the ground signals, loads of lights, walkways, workmen, noise, everything else. It's going to be fantastic round here. And it's going to be a great place where when you come and visit, you can spot all these big heavy freight trains. And as I've just said, the scenic break will be just where my vac is. So you'll get trains coming out on 3 levels. You'll be getting them coming and going out of that level, and the HS3 will be next to it on a higher level as well. So that's going to be brilliant. And of course, you'll have this level too. And all this in the middle, what will this be? Well, you're going to find out in the next few weeks. I'm going to keep that a secret for now. But there we go. I hope you enjoyed that little update at this end. I'm so pleased I have finally... Oh, in fact, no, I've not finished because I've got this to do today. When I've uploaded this video, I'll be ballasting, putting the droppers in for this section. And that is it. All ballasted, all finished, all electrified, just waiting for all the hardware to arrive for the automation that's going to go in, which of course means I can still work it all manually too in a few weeks' time. So there we go, folks. Bit of an update for you. Okay, so let's move on to our delivery section and what has landed in the dungeon this week. Well, I'll start off rather with the juicy stuff, which is a nice Class 37. Now, you've seen this before, I know, but this one, Hellion O gauge, obviously. I've taken the body off, as you can see. The reason why I'm showing you is because I've now finished putting the new noses on, because I wanted this to represent the DRS 37s, which had these Y-Pack lights at the front. I think that's what you call them. And Protoneo, which supply conversions for O-gauge locos and nameplates and stuff, do these. They went on really well. The old ones pulled off. I just epoxied these on the front. It's now got its transfers on from Railtech. As you can see, it's 37038. And this one will be going to these locos for its sound, speaker, decoder and everything else, and then it'll be coming back to me and I will be weathering it with you guys. I'm not going to weather this so much because it's a fairly new loco, even for the era that I'm now modelling, early 2000s. So there we go. So I've counted that in the deliveries. Now, what else has landed? We have got something completely different. Craft Resin. Now, this company, again, popping up on your screen now, doesn't matter what gauge you're modelling. If you want to model water, this is much cheaper than the Woodland Scenic stuff, which is, get my words out, is exactly the same stuff. But this is a bit cheaper and it's probably, well, it is a really good supplier. It comes the next day and it's really good stuff. It comes in lots of different sizes, so you can choose. If you're doing a small stream, you can just get 500 milligrams or whatever, 500 grams rather, and yeah, go from there. So it's good stuff. It's a good supplier, and we're going to be doing this next week because we're going to be doing the storm drain on the cement factory. So yeah, if you want some craft resin to do water, good supplier. Now, West Hill Wagon Works, right. Well, I got some bits from them, like mileposts in O gauge. They do double O gauge, O gauge. I'm not sure if they do N. You'll have to have a look on their website. I also got some bits and pieces for the catenary because I've made a bit of a mess with some of the catenary masts and I just need to modify them. Now, I know they only do double O gauge bits and pieces for catenaries in, yeah, double O gauge. They don't do them in O, but I thought I could maybe make them fit. So as you can see, I've got some gradient signposts and what have you. But I have got to say, and I don't like knocking small businesses, West Hill Wagon Works do some great little products, great packaging, but their mail order is absolutely shocking. And I'm going to knock them, I don't care, because every time I have ordered from them, it's taken 2 months for anything to arrive, and only then after I've threatened chargebacks. And as for the lady that does YouTube videos that has given them an award, she probably hasn't actually ordered anything from them, simply because if she had, I don't think she'd have given them that award, because honestly, it really does take a long time for things to come through. And there's no excuse. I've run businesses. You need to get your mail order right. Having an inbox completely full, never answering the phone, emails bouncing back, it's just not good for business. So please, West Hill Wagon Works, you do some great products, just get your mail order sorted out, because it's your core business and it needs sorting out. So I'm sorry if I'm knocking them, but they deserve it on this occasion. Right, moving on to happier things. This will hopefully, what was I going to say? This will hopefully please some of you guys who are into 1960s diesels, because it is a green Class 40. Now, why have I got a green Class 40? Right, well, I'll tell you in a second when I can get it out of the box. The reason is it's going to be doing rail tours. So this one I'm going to kind of badge up, have as a rail tour Class 40. It was donated by my friend Dr. Debs, whose late husband left a collection, and she's kindly donated all sorts of locos to me over the last year or so. So thanks to her. And this one I'm going to be keeping for posterity. And it's going to be running rail tours, pulling a load of Pullmans or Mark 1s. So I'm looking forward to weathering this. I do love Class 40s, don't we all? They just sound fantastic, don't they? Moving on. Now, this is the surprise I mentioned in the introduction. Who remembers a few months, couple of years ago, was it a year ago, when I talked about a Clayton Class 17 and I said it would make a really good shunter? Well, these photos that are popping up now just show you that since last Sunday, that Sunday just gone, I've just been doing an hour or so every evening, and this, folks, is the final result. Let me show you. Here we go. The Blue Circle Cement private shunter. Obviously fictitious, but I just thought the 17 would make a great shunter, and so it does. And I'm going to be going through with you how I did the weathering, because it's come off, even if I say so myself, really, really well. Just look at that. And it just works so well. Cement clagged roof of a shunter. And this one, obviously I've sprayed yellow. Basically, just to show you, and we're going to take you through the how-to. I'm going to take you through the how-to in a few minutes. But all I've done is just sprayed the roof and the bonnets with precision paints, enamel concrete paint. I've sprinkled tons of talc on, waited till it dried, and then used an airbrush without anything in it, just the blast of air from the airbrush, at high pressure to blow off the dried talc, and you get this lovely effect there. So I'm so pleased with that. It's come off really well, and then I've just coated it with satin varnish. Yeah, this is going to look great. I've put some warning stripes on the front, which I've just painted on. Not done a brilliant job of them. I've also tried to Dremel open, or I used a scalpel to open one of the doors. We're going to have a man hanging out of that all the time, because this is only going to be going at walking pace up and down the cement factory sidings. But I thought you'd like that. Come out really good. And again, in this video, I'm just going to show you how to get that effect on your tank wagons, if you've got some cement tank wagons or anything you want to use loco wise, which would benefit from a bit of cement on top of it. So keep watching for that. Now, I also had, moving on, a visit from John Hoyle from Made in Manchester Models. He does specialise in O gauge, but he makes all sorts of really, really nice stuff for O gauge modelers. I mean, look at that. That's absolutely super. Fueling point. Look how detailed it is, and that's off the shelf. Comes with an LED light, as you can see. Absolutely super. I'm just trying to see if it's got a price on it. I can't remember. But yeah, Made in Manchester Models. I also bought from him one of these, which is just epic. Look at that. All soldered construction, just made out of tin cans, would you believe? But how good does that look? Yes, it's big, but O gauge is big. But you can, yeah, it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter what gauge you're modelling. Those look really nice. So thanks to John for all that. What else have we got? Yeah, he also brought me some bits and pieces which enable me to make up kind of pipes and all sorts of valves which fit onto these pipes. Got loads of different selections here, and you just thread them on, and then you can just paint them and prime them, which is what I'm going to be doing in the cement factory. So, because I just need loads of pipes and valves and everything else, so that's really good. So that, folks, is about it for deliveries. I'm sure there was something else, but I can't find it, so I'll move on. And yeah, there we go. Deliveries this week. Now then, back in the introduction, I was saying that I was really well motivated when the cooling tower extension carts landed. Before we get onto that, James has been doing some scenery modelling here, and he's done a great job. So these are the four, those of you that watch these videos regularly will know, these are the four tracks that just hold heavy loaded MGR trains, and they go all the way down there. Right in the distance is the coal unloading facility. And they go back the other way to join the mainline station a bit further on. But the reason I am round at this side is because I wanted to show you this. So there we go. That is 2/3 of the cooling tower. You'll know that I can't get the other third on because unfortunately the ceiling is too low. But this cooling tower, once painted, detailed, will be sitting on the layout as it is now in its full entirety in the future when the layout goes out to different places, because I'll have the room there, which I haven't got here. But just for scale, I thought I'd show you an MGR train too. So we've got a class 60 there, of course, with a load of HAAs. And that gives you some idea of the scale. And if I just duck down, you can see exactly what I mean. And that tower, I think I've mentioned before, once the top's on, it still scales out at less than 200 feet, which is still quite a small cooling tower. Some of them were 220 or 250 feet. But again, just imagine literally a dozen MGR trains coming back and forth past this cooling tower. There's another one next to it. They're both going to be belching steam out. They've got sound modules inside which mimic the rushing water because there was water that cascaded down. Steam will be coming out of the top, and I just think the power station turbine hall will be in the middle. And it won't be in the middle. It'll be at the far end. And I just think this will just make such a difference. It won't dominate the layout. And one thing, actually, somebody touched on it in the on my Facebook page. because he said that he thought that the cooling towers might dominate the whole layout and just be too much. And I agreed with him, but I'm glad to say, and I'm pleased to say, I don't think that'll be the case, because we've got such a massive long layout down there and down the other way, that these cooling towers, though big, give a real sense of scale. And of course, you'll have loads of sky above them as well. So you'll just look up and see wisps of steam coming out of the top, and all the sound coming from the freight trains that are going to be passing at very regular intervals. So hope you like that. In fact, we'll dip underneath and I'll just show you the carts. So I just put rugs down on here because I've been through so many jeans, would you believe? The knees of my jeans really suffer. But yeah, here are the extension carts that the cooling towers stand on. These are 6 foot by 6 foot. Yes, I am mad, but there you go. They've got wheels on too. These, just so you know, work out about 400 quid, which I know is expensive, but it is nothing compared to how much it would be if there were trestles and marine ply or birch ply or whatever. I say nothing. They're about the same price, and I think it's worthwhile having the fabricated steel ones with wheels, so I can push this cooling tower about, because once it's made up in its entirety, it will simply be staying there. It won't move. It will be staying there all the time. So I'll be able to push these on the back of one of the 5 or 6 articulated trucks I am going to need, and that's another story. But anyway, there we go. And there's a bit of a view underneath. So these just basically clamp on to the edge of the main boards, so they're dead easy to disconnect, move around, and if I have a derailment, if you're going to ask, then basically worst case scenario is I'll have to come out from my hidey hole in an exhibition, pull this extension cart out, lean over and re-rail everything. But hopefully, with the speed of the freight trains through the marshalling yard, which is only going to be literally 20-30 miles an hour or less, it's not going to be too much of an issue. So anyway, I hope you liked that update on the cooling towers. These are all going to be concrete, of course. I'm going to paint these, probably not with the spray paint, simply because I don't want it to melt the polystyrene. So they'll be painted with acrylic. And when they're done, they're going to look fab. So yeah, there we go. So let's move on to book of the week. And as you can see, I have chosen 70s diesel and electric days remembered. Now, this is a series of books. I think I've got most of them now. And published by Strathwood, written by Kevin Derrick. But you know what? I really like these books. One of those books, again, if it's late at night and you just sat up in bed and you want something to read, then this is a good choice. It features the whole network from the Woodhead route, which, do you know what? I really wish that I'd taken the time when I was in my teens to go and see the Woodhead routes. It's only about 20 miles from here, and I never did. And to my regret. But anyway, going back to the book, yes, it's just got everything in here. I love 70s and I love 80s, but 70s I kind of just about remember, but it's just got photos and really good colour photos from all over the region. I mean, look at that Sea-Link. Who remembers Sea-Link ferries? Crikey. Really good, really enjoyable. I mean, it's photos like this that I love. I mean, look at the cars there. The different coloured cars. I mean, everybody's got grey, silver, white and black cars these days, but look at the colour combination there next to that DMU. But yeah, there's everything in here. I do like this series of books. It's just a really good read. They used to be really expensive, these. I think they're about 30, 35 quid, something like that, when I first started buying them. But this one was 17.50. In fact, yeah, there's the price, 34.95, which I think is rather expensive, even though they are full colour. But I got this at the Manchester Model Railway Society exhibition a couple of months ago for 17.50, and well worth it for that. I think it's available on Amazon now for 25 quid, something like that. So it's still well worth, well, 20 quid, I think, but still well worth it. Just got some really evocative and great photos. So again, well worth it for the collection. This is the second edition. There must be obviously a first one, which I don't think I've read, but I've read all the others. Great book, Kevin Derrick. You've done a good job. Strathwood, published by, and of course, 70s Diesel and Electric Days Remembered Part 2. Great book and well worth it for 17.50, and again, available from Amazon. So that, folks, is my book of the week. Right, folks, now for this week's how-to. And what I thought I'd do this week is just show you how I achieved that effect on the Clayton Class 17 that I showed you earlier, because it doesn't matter what gauge you're modelling, N gauge, double O gauge, O gauge, LGB, for goodness sake, you can still do this effect, which is super on any cement wagon. This is a PCA, obviously, a Hellion 1, but there's loads of different, cement wagons on the market, from press flows or whatever they're called. So lots of different ones, and you can still achieve that effect on any of them. You don't even need an airbrush. You can actually paint with a brush, use a brush instead of an airbrush. Or if you want to do, you haven't got an airbrush, you can use a rattle can as well. So Phoenix Precision Paints do rattle cans in concrete, so you can use one of those too. I'm going to use an airbrush for speed because I've got so many to do, but I'm just going to show you what to do step by step, because honestly, you'll feel such a sense of achievement because you get such a great result from basically such a short length of time. So let's go through the ingredients. We need some of this. Rail Match do a concrete. This is from Phoenix Precision Paints. As you can see, this is new concrete, which I would call older concrete, but anyway, it's the more yellowy concrete, but they call it new concrete. And you need some of our old friend, some talcum powder that we used in the roads last week. I use it all the time, great stuff, but not for what it was designed for. And what I've done is I've just mixed 50-50 thinners and the Phoenix Precision Paints concrete together, and I'm just going to use an Iwata airbrush, but again, you can use a rattle can, or you can even paint the concrete on the top, because I'm primarily going to weather just the top of this PCA. So I'm just going to pour a bit of it in there, and then I'm just going to spray on top. I'll try not to block the camera up with my hand. So I'm just going to spray over the top. Now you have to use quite a lot of it because you don't want it to dry before you put the talc on. That's the compressor kicking in. And we're just going to do the tops and a bit of the sides. But again, you've got to be liberal here. Use a lot of it, which I love because I always use too much of everything. And then quickly, before it dries, we're going to cover it with talc. Now, I know some people will say you're going to have a job getting that off, but honestly, you're not. Well, we are, but we want it to stay on for reasons I'm just going to show you. So I reckon just cover it all over with talc. Now, we're going to give it another blast. The air from it will dissipate a lot of it, as you can see. And we're going to give it another blast on top. Like so, bit down the middle. So it always went down the middle. Again, you can use a rattle can. You can use a paintbrush. Just give it loads of it. And then we're just going to sprinkle the talc on again. There we go. Right. Now that's the second coat, going to let this dry now. So we're going to leave this I reckon I'm gonna leave this about an hour. Again, I should have said you can use enamels, you can use acrylics. I personally would use enamels because they take longer to dry, and you want that time period before the, I was going to say flour then, before the talc actually, you need it to sink into the wet paint. So let's leave that and come back to it in about an hour. Right, so this is after a couple of hours. I think the paint has just about dried, and this is the effect we're left with. You can see the talc on top, all the excess talc. We're going to give that a blast. Now I've got an airbrush here with nothing in it whatsoever, so I'm just going to use the high pressure air to blast off the talc. And if you haven't got an airbrush, you can just use, you can get rattle cans that have just got air, high pressure air in, so you can use one of those too. But I'm just going to use it to blast off the excess talc. But I'm going to bring the airbrush really near to the big blobs of talc. You can just hear the compressor popping in. And we're just going to go over it like so. And you can just see bits flaking off here or there. Spin it round. Now even the talc that's left on there gives a really good effect. And I've said before in this intro, you can use any tank wagon that carries cement. There's loads of different ones in whatever gauge you're modelling. Right, I reckon that's just about done. Now then, let's just have a closer look. So you can see the talc is left in, there's bits flaked off. You can do another coat. I think on the Clayton I did another coat on top just to make it even more crusty. So basically you can go over it again with the airbrush and the paint over the top of that talc. Just experiment, it's good fun. Wait till it dries and blast it off just like I've done with the airbrush with no paint in it whatsoever, or a rattle can with high pressure air in, and you'll get that effect. Now the only thing you need to do to finish this off is just add some frame dirt or dirty black onto the chassis. Now again, Phoenix Precision Paints do both those colours in rattle cans if you haven't got an airbrush, and I'm conscious that a lot of people haven't. So it just will look super. So let's just nip onto that next step and just finish it off with a bit of frame dirt on the chassis. So I've just loaded the airbrush with some frame dirt. This is Rail Match, and I'm just going to blast it all over the bottom, right round. Sorry about the state of my airbrush booth. Lee's Locos would have an absolute fit because his looks like an operating theatre. This certainly doesn't. Just keep going round like so. This is going to be a very mucky PCA tank wagon. Okay, so I think that, folks, is just about it. Now, the last thing I'm going to do when this is dry in a few minutes, you can see what we've got here. This looks brilliant. Wait while it's on the layout in a few minutes. Is I'm going to use some satin varnish to finish it off, and that will seal in all the talc. You do need to use that, otherwise every time you pick this up you're going to get talc all over your fingers, and bits of it might break off, etc, etc, especially if you're transporting your wagons, if you take them to exhibitions. So what I would do is just use some rattle can satin varnish, which you can get from B&Q or sprayster.com where I get mine, or you can use Rail Match satin varnish and give it a blast over. So I'm just going to do that now and then call it a day, and then we'll have a look at it on the layout. Okay, back again with the satin varnish. So this is what I'm using, Rail Match satin varnish, and all you need to do is just mix this 50-50 with thinners. Any terps, any old terps will do fine. So it's the consistency of kind of milk, maybe a little bit thinner than milk. So we've done that. I've put it in the airbrush and we're just going to give it a quick spray. I'm proper going to wet it though. I have got a mask on for those of you that are health conscious. Okay. And this, as I said, will seal everything in. Probably put a bit much on there, but there you go. Doesn't matter. You can't really go wrong with doing stuff like this. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that to dry and then we're going to stick that on the layout. So we'll take it out in a second and see what it looks like. But before I take it onto the layout, I forgot one little trick. Before we've just put the satin varnish on, before it dries, just get a microfiber cloth or a little bit of kitchen roll will do. Just go down the sides and just kind of streak it a bit. If you can, it's not difficult. Even if you don't streak it and you make some sort of marks, that's fine. We're just going to go down like so, down the other side. And what this will do, it'll just mean that you've got some discrepancies, for want of a better word, in the overall look. And that's what we want. Okay, so I reckon that's okay. So let's go back to the last stage, let it dry, and we'll put it on the layout. So here we are, folks, with the Clayton, a cement mixer, and the PCA tank wagon we have just done together. And there it is. Now, the only difference is I used a slightly whiter shade of paint, cement paint, on the Clayton, yellowy shade on the PCA, which it's nice to mix and match, and not quite as much paint on the PCA as I used on the Clayton. You can see the overall effect on the Clayton because I've used more paint and I've also used more talc, and then I've waited till it dried and then blasted it off with the airbrush. It's just a case of experimentation. Use more or less, whatever suits you. You're not going to get it wrong, because at the end of the day, you want to see these things in service that were absolutely covered, so you can't go wrong. It's really good fun, and honestly, if you haven't weathered PCA tank wagons or any type of cement wagon in any gauge you're modelling, just have a go, because it's good fun and you get a really good feeling when it's finished. So hope you like that. I think that looks really, really good. Right, folks, that is just about it for this week, and thanks again for watching. And I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you that write nice comments every week in the YouTube section. Makes a huge difference. I sit in Costa on a Saturday morning and hopefully answer most of them, but thank you, it really makes a difference. And yeah, I don't know what I'd do without it sometimes, because like being the mole in the hole that I am, it does, yeah, I do find support in those comments. So thank you, and have a great weekend, and look forward to seeing you next week.